Welcome, my beautiful friend. This is the Time to Care the Caregivers podcast. I'm Isabel Melgarejo, your host. And today with me, I have Paul Wynn. He is a family caregiver advocate. He knows everything about being a caregiver. He's an author. So I'm really excited about this conversation because he has so much experience. He's interviewed I don't know how many people and knows a lot about caregiving. So I'm really excited to have you here today, Paul. Welcome.
Thank you, Isabel. It's great to be here.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you started in this journey about writing about issues in the healthcare space and supporting family caregivers and all of those things?
Yeah, well, I think like so many family caregivers, we're thrown into our caregiving roles unexpectedly sometimes or willingly. In my case, I was the caregiver for my mom and my uncle, who both received the diagnosis of Alzheimer's right about the same time.
Wow.
So it wasn't a shock to our family. Their two older sisters also had Alzheimer's and dementia related issues. So it wasn't a total surprise, but yet it was because you're like, this isn't going to happen to mom. She's healthy. She's a vibrant 80-year-old woman, and she seemed like she was going to live forever. And then suddenly she started declining. She started slipping. We noticed family members noticing different changes in her behavior. She just wasn't the same mom that we used to, rely on and enjoy being around. Like she was getting quieter. She was getting more forgetful. The common symptoms that you see with loved ones with a dementia cause, and so it was a surprise, but it wasn't at the same time. And we rallied around getting her the best care, but at the same time my uncle, was a Catholic priest in Connecticut, he was also slipping and he was also needing more and more care. And what was challenging was I was a working caregiver, working full time, like so many, and I had a young family. So I was the classic sandwich generation caregiver, juggling older family members and also a young family at the same time, being stretched between both needs, demands, desire to be with everybody, but not with anybody. And it's a constant juggling act. And it was a tough time for sure, because I didn't know where sometimes my priorities should be.
Yes. And then having two people that you're caring for, that just complicates things so much. Because it's not just, okay, I have my attention focused on this person, on my mom. It's, I have to care for my mom, care for my uncle, care for my family, and care for myself at some point if I notice I'm need support.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's the self-care that gets pushed and pushed further and further down on the priority list, right? Because you put everyone else's needs first, and if you forget about yourself. You forget what were my hobbies? How did I relax? What did I do in my spare time? What spare time? Where there is no spare time. So it's a difficult time in the caregiver's life because they really don't know how to take a break. And I think that's why the self care movement has grown so much over the years, because it's so critical for caregivers to take that pause, to take a break, even if it's just 5 minutes. Every little break counts to re energize yourself, and it makes you a better caregiver.
Definitely it does. And I know you talk about this. So, and I know you've interviewed so many people throughout the years. What are the things that you have found that personally or through other people have helped the most?
One of the things that I have found that helps the most is making sure that you don't feel like you're alone in your caregiving journey. And what I mean by that is making sure that you are connecting with your siblings. If you do have some that you're going through this, make sure that you're connecting well with your spouse through this journey. and find friends who maybe are also going through similar journeys at the same time or have in the past. And you can find these friends through work, through hobbies, through your church. It's so important to feel like you're connecting with others that can understand and relate to what you're going through. I have a lot of I'm very blessed to have so many friends. Unfortunately, I was one of the first in my peer group that was really going through this caregiving journey. And so while they were very supportive and they loved my mom and they loved my uncle and they loved me, they couldn't truly relate to what I was going through. So conversations with them, it was more venting versus really having a dialogue about like, how do I deal with this? Or did you ever experience that situation? And so I think having those peers in your life where you can bounce ideas off of, get advice, tips, anything, I think that is really one of the most critical things to a caregiver's journey.
Yes, I can really relate to that. I became a caregiver when I was 20, so there was not even a realization of caregiving. It was just like more of the people it was our parents caring for our grandparents kind of thing. So it was there. People knew about it, but it was completely detached from all of my friends. They had absolutely no idea what I was going through. And I do remember receiving a lot of care and support from teachers who probably had experienced a similar journey, but it was my professors at college who came out to me and they were so kind and open and caring about my situation. I found support in professors, not my friends. And eventually you finish the class and that relationship is over. But for me personally, I wish I would have known to like look for that support because I think it would have been easy for me to keep a relationship with a professor and I didn't.
Yeah, and what I would say is I wish I did a better job during my caregiving years to reach out to peers as well and make more of a connection there. Like you, I was a young caregiver. I wasn't in my 20s, but I was on the young side, and so finding support groups that have people in your age group, and it's also harder, I will say, for men to feel connected to support groups because they are so overwhelmingly, female participants. Sometimes the
Mhm.
guys just don't feel like they're well connected. And the male support groups that are out there, and there are many, many out there, more than over the years, they tend to obviously be older, men, caring for spouses or, older parents. And so there's definitely, there's groups that sort of get lost in that caregiving community. And that's why I felt so strongly it was important to represent the sandwich generation caregivers in the chapter I wrote for the Caregivers Advocate Volume 2, which was recently published. And in my chapter, Surviving the Sandwich Generation Years, I really talk about that time in my life. And my goal was to really give that community a voice and also resources where they feel connected to other sandwich generation caregivers.
Yes, and I think you bring something that the community we need to be more aware of. And I often say women are the ones who get the brunt of caregiving. Also, there are a lot of men that are caring for spouses or who are only childs, or like in my case, I know in the second round of caregiving for my mom, my brother is gonna be the one taking the brunt of it because the rest of us are living somewhere else, other cities, other countries. So I think it is really, really important to raise awareness that is not just a problem for women, it is also a problem for men. And just because majority of people are women doing the caregiving, it doesn't mean that men are not part of it. So how do you feel that changes in terms of resources that you found, or I don't know. I've talked with single dads and they find that they get a lot of support because they're in the store with a single child and they get support from other people. How do you find that as a family caregiver as a family caregiver who, like, you're a man and probably um it's not the stereotypical job.
Yeah. Well, men are definitely stepping up into their caregiving roles. I think according to some of the latest numbers I've seen, I think they're now around like represent about 40%, maybe slightly higher of the whole caregiving community. So females, they will always represent the largest percentage portion of the community, but I do think men are quietly also, being in their caregiving roles, and they're jumping in head first and willingly because they know it's so important for their spouses, for their parents, maybe for siblings. They just do it in a different way. They're not the ones that are speaking at the conferences. They're not the ones writing books. They're not leading support groups like a lot of, women out there, but they are quietly doing their caregiving roles. And I think what I would recommend to men if they're seeking support is find it online. I think there's a lot of great support groups out there that you can find that might either be disease specific if you're dealing with dementia, ALS, Parkinson's, whatever the condition is. I think there's a lot of support groups that way. And if you're 50 plus, AARP has a great caregiving support group on Facebook that you can join. There's a lot of different online resources out there that I feel like would be really great, a great way for men to connect nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. And I actually, my last cohort, uh, uh one of one of the people was a man, and he quit his job and moved to Germany to care for his dad and, well, both his parents. But you start seeing those kinds of things, like, I'm going to quit my job and move back home, wherever home is, to support my family. So what was it like being in the sandwich generation? Because I know that's your expertise topic. What are the three things that you found help you the most besides having a community? How did you bridge caring for your kids and caring for your mom?
Yeah, so I'll answer the first question and then maybe you can re-ask the second one because there's a lot to unpack there. But as a sandwich generation caregiver, I think there's several different strategies that caregivers should definitely consider. One of them that I think is kind of obvious, but maybe not well done in practice is finding ways to bring both generations together. A lot of times when you're caring for an older family member, maybe they're still living independently, but a lot of times now they're moving into long term care, nursing homes, memory care units. There's no reason why you shouldn't bring your children there to visit grandmom or grandpop, even if it's just for a short visit. The joy that the kids bring to the grandparents is just
Mm.
it's just priceless. And I think that those moments, there's moments there. Sometimes your loved one may not be having a great day, and but there might be some days when they're really like very engaged. I remember my mom's last birthday. She was just in such a wonderful, happy mood that day. She was so happy to see her family. We invited several of her close friends to come join us for her birthday celebration. My kids were there, and it was so adorable. When we sang happy birthday, my mom joined in and started singing with
Hmm.
us. And she might not have known all the words, but she knew enough to show that she was participating. And my oldest son runs over to me and she's like, look, grandma's singing happy birthday. And he was just so surprised, but also just joy, the joy that he saw. And my mom was just incredible. And so find ways to bring those generations together, even moments, especially as we get into the holidays. Like, what a beautiful time, to have the generations together and celebrate these important milestones and moments in our lives. I think the other key opportunity is to talk to your employer about opportunities to be more flexible with your work. I mean, so many working caregivers are juggling everything, full-time work and all their caregiving responsibilities and family duties. It's just too much. And the reason why people are getting burned out is because they don't have a break at work either. And it's so important to talk to your employer to find out what are their options in terms of remote work, hybrid work, flex work. Are there, different medical leaves that they offer to workers that they can take advantage of? Sometimes there's opportunities to talk to HR, and there's flexibility that are not even in the HR manuals, right? There's just in some companies, especially maybe, smaller ones, there might be more flexibility than you think because if you're a great worker, they're going to want to hold on to you. Talk to your employer, talk to the HR team, and see what benefits there are to make your caregiving life just that much easier, a little less stress and pressure there. The last idea I'll suggest, because I want everyone to, tune in and check out the new book, The Caregiver's Advocate Volume 2, is available on Amazon, available on my website, paulwynn.com. And the other opportunity is to make sure that you're getting the support from your family too. I was very blessed that my wife had such a great relationship with my mom and my uncle, and she was able to join me on many opportunities to spend time with them. We made them family events, but she was also there as my backup, my sounding board, someone that I could vent to, sorry, let me say that one more time. I was very fortunate to have my wife as my backup, my support, someone that I could, talk to, share ideas with, vent to, have her as my circle of care. And she loved my mom and uncle just as much as I did. And so she was my support network when I needed that help. Maybe I was on a business trip and she needed to set up the doctor's appointment, or maybe I was juggling so much with work or with the kids that she was able to jump in and help with mom's needs. And so having someone to back you up, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a sibling, I think is really critical to the sandwich generation caregivers.
My question was like, how do you bridge caring for children and parents? And you sort of already touch a little bit on that, making children participate in activities and going, and I think that is wonderful. A wonderful way of connecting everybody, cuz at least for myself, I feel that when someone is sick, the family kind of cracks and everybody goes on their way instead of everybody acting as a unit. And I see that a lot in American culture, not so much in Latino culture. So for me, it was not a shock because it was not, but it was something that I learned when I came to the US, how families interact when someone needs help and care. And for me, growing up in Mexico, when someone was sick, families would come together and support. And you would see the whole family, and right now I'm thinking of a really good friend of my mom who just went through a really tough surgery, and everybody was in the hospital. My mom told me that she went to visit her to the hospital and she had to wait a couple hours to have the opportunity to go see her. And you see the families in the waiting room and it's just like like a party there. You don't see that here. So I think it is important to start embracing and connecting and making everybody participate. What other ways do you think would be really good for people to just bridge both sides of the sandwich?
Yeah, I think when you're stuck in the middle of the sandwich and you're trying to prioritize, like, do I spend time with mom this weekend at the nursing home, or do I take little Tommy to a soccer game? Those are tough choices. You want to be in both places, right? But you can't. And so one of the things that I did do, and I think it was pretty successful and also kind of relieved some of that stress for me. When my brother, who lived close to my mom, would go visit her, we would always make sure that he would call me and we would be able to talk with mom. Became a time when mom wasn't able to use her phone anymore on her own. She didn't understand how to use technology, but my brother was able to dial me in, and the three of us would have a little conversation. And maybe my mom couldn't really participate a lot, and probably I was doing a lot more of the talking and my brother was, and maybe the conversation was more about my brother and I connecting, but it was still so important for my mom to hear my voice, and I got to hear hers, and I still felt connected to her. And by doing that, it allowed me then to spend time at my son's soccer game, and be involved in their lives because that's so important too. So there's such like simple way, that we can use technology today with FaceTime, with all the different apps and stuff. Like there's ways that we can stay connected and maybe we're not physically there, but we can still connect as loved ones and share in each other's lives.
I love that. And I live it learning how different people do different things that work for them. Because everything works for everybody, but if you learn something, then you're able to go and try and see if it's working for you or not. And you can try different things. So, going back to your book, what are the biggest lessons of writing this book? And I know um, other authors have been here in the podcast as well. So you're not the first one. So I want you to share your experience of sharing with these all these other caregivers your experience in this regard, because I know it went a lot of effort went into this book. So I would love for you to share that experience with everybody.
Well, I'm so proud to be one of the authors in the recently published The Caregiver's Advocate Volume 2. I'm one of 22 authors that's featured in this new book. And this is a series of books that started off 2 years ago as Volume 1. And then the lead author, Debbie DeMoss Compton, decided there was so much interest out there from the community that she wanted to do a Volume 2. And now she's actually working on volume 3. And one of the reasons I loved being part of this was because there was such collaboration with all the other authors. There was this spirit of a family that was all contributing to a cause to help other caregivers feel less alone. I think for a lot of authors, they would say that it's a very solitary journey when you're writing a book. It's you in your mind, just thinking about all your ideas. But when you're collaborating in a book with so many other authors, you're feeding off each other, you're giving each other energy, you're motivating one another, you're on Zoom calls together, updating one another, talking about plans, brainstorming on how we can get this book out to the community. And so from that standpoint, it was just such a invigorating, like exciting opportunity to, contribute to this book. And I don't regret any moment. All the time that we put into it, it was just wonderful. And the feedback that we're getting from the community and the reviews on Amazon are just amazing. It makes me want to write more.
Yes, we need more books. I always make the analogy of when someone has a baby or when there's a new baby, there are all these resources. There's a lot of research, a lot of books, toys. Everybody is in there for the new baby, supporting the baby, the mother. Everybody's right there. But when it's about caring for a senior, there's nothing. So I agree. We need more books. We need more information, more of everything.
As an aside, I think if you know Debbie, you should reach out to her and tell her we need a Spanish language caregiving book. There's a
Yeah.
huge opportunity there. There's very few resources out there for Spanish speaking people.
Yes, and I've recently talked with this person who helps create awareness within the Latino community in terms of insurance and healthcare, and because the culture is so different. So yeah, I will connect. I don't know her, but I guess I will connect with her.
Yeah, we can talk offline about that. Sure.
So, where can people find you, or is before that, is there anything else you want to share with us today?
Yeah, I think the one of the last points I just want to make is that the sandwich generation caregiver is a huge segment of the community. In the latest report from AARP and the National Alliance for Caregiving, there's now 63 million family caregivers out there, and they estimate that there's 16 million sandwich generation caregivers. And when you
That
think
is a
about
lot of people.
that's a lot of people out there like feeling very isolated, feeling very much on their own, struggling with their lives, not knowing where to turn to for resources. And, when you think about it, Isabel, if you're a spousal caregiver, there's a lot of resources out there. If you're a dementia caregiver, there's a lot. Working caregivers, sandwich generation caregivers, not so much. There really aren't any like great resources, not too many books on that. There's not a whole lot of Facebook groups, support groups specifically for them. And so that's what really motivated me to write the chapter in this book to give sandwich generation caregivers a voice, feel that they're heard, feel that they're recognized, feel that they're part of a community, a bigger community, and also provide some recommendations, some ideas on how to juggle all the pressure, all the stress, the anxiety that they feel when they're trying to juggle everything.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're if you're in that space, I think they should get your book. And where can they find it? I know you already mentioned Amazon on your website. Is there any other places where people can connect with you?
Yeah, so the book is available on Amazon, and it's a great ugh, why did I say it that way? All right. The book is available on Amazon, The Caregiver's Advocate Volume 2. It's a great place to buy it. If you're looking for bulk discounts, you can also find that on my website, paulwynn.com. But if you do look online, you'll see a lot of resources and you'll see a lot of great reviews about it. I'm really excited by some of the book reviews we've gotten, even from caregiving advocates, experts like Barry Jacobs, Daniel Potts, a doctor down in Alabama. There's been some really great feedback from other authors and experts in the field. So we're very excited.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. I can't wait to come back.
Of course.